Senator Daley, Senator Cannizzaro, Senator Krasner, Senator Steinbeck, Chair Orenshaw.
Present. And
Assem-
Madam Secretary, please mark Senator Daley present and Senator Cannizzaro present as well.
Assemblymember Cole, Assemblymember Dickman, Assemblymember Edgeworth, Assemblymember Gonzalez, Assemblymember Hibbets, Assemblymember Hadigi, Assemblymember Monroe Moreno, Assemblymember Moore, Assemblymember Nadeem, Chair Mosca.
Thank you very much, Madam Secretary. Please mark Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno absent excused. I would like to welcome everyone to the first joint meeting of the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections and our sister committee, the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections. We are glad to welcome our Assembly Committee members here today. Our committees meet at nearly the same time, so when it is possible to do so, we arrange to have presentations to the joint committees. This helps us as we can hear the same information and helps our presenters to avoid duplicating their efforts. Before I go any further, I'd like to invite Assemblymember Mosca, who's chair of the Assembly Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to make any opening remarks she cares to make. And, pardon me, Madam Secretary, please mark Assemblymember Miller present.
Thank you, Chair Orenshaw. We are excited to be here in our joint committee meeting, and I'm excited to hear from our Secretary of State as well as our clerks from around the state. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you very much. I'd like to provide some general housekeeping reminders. There are hard copies of the meeting materials available for members of the public. Electronic copies were submitted to our committee manager yesterday for members of the committee. Members of the public may also access electronic copies of the materials on the Nevada Legislature's website. We expect courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting, even if we may not agree with one another on positions. I will expect the same from all those attending the hearing and from all members. A few reminders about testifying before the committee. Please sign in at the table by the door, either here in Carson City or at the Las Vegas LCB office. Please give the committee secretary your business card if you have one prior to testifying. If you have handouts for the committee, you will be asked to provide 20 hard copies to the committee secretary for use by the public. The public is advised that during meetings, legislators and staff are using laptops to view bills and exhibits, so please do not think that this is a sign of inattention or disrespect. Public comment will be taken at the end of this meeting. Everyone wishing to make public comment will be given the same amount of time, 2 minutes per person. Finally, we ask everyone to please turn off or silence any electronic devices that you have. Today, we have presentations on our agenda. Our first presentation will be an overview of statewide election programs and activities. We're very lucky to have our presenters today from the Secretary of State's office, our Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, our Chief Deputy Secretary of State, Gabriel DeChara, and Deputy Secretary of State, Mark Wolashin. Thank you very much for being here, and please begin.
Thank you. Cisco, CISCO, Aguilar, AGU, ILAR. Good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw and Chair Mosca, and members of both committees. For the record, I'm Nevada Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar. It is a pleasure to be here today. I'm joined by Chief Deputy DeChara and Deputy for Elections, Mark Wolashin, and others from the Elections Division. We are here today to provide an overview about Nevada's elections. This overview will primarily focus on two main groups of people. First, I will provide an overview about Nevada's elections officials so you can understand who executes the laws created by this body. Second, I will provide information about our voters, how they participate in elections, and how we collectively support them leading up to, on, and after Election Day. Then we will close out the presentation describing the implementation of bills passed during the last session, as well as the status of current petitions. Before we begin, I want you to know that I consider this presentation today an extremely important part of how I contribute to the legislative process as Nevada's Chief Elections Officer. In the coming weeks, you will discuss numerous elections-related bills, between 40 to 50 at last count. Some propose minor changes, and others sweeping reforms. Those conversations and the decisions that result must be based on data to ensure that those decisions are in the best interest of the voter and our election workers. My office and I, in close coordination with our county and city elections officials, will do everything we can to provide you, as lawmakers, with the information you need to legislate. For the last 25 months that I've been your Secretary of State, I've witnessed firsthand how destructive mis- and disinformation can be. I have seen individuals continue to spread malicious lies and downright nonsense for many reasons, from furthering their own political interests to getting people to like and subscribe to their blogs. Those efforts continue today, spreading confusion and frustration among voters. We've all seen it. Bizarre claims appear on all of our social media applications and newspaper op-eds and all forms of media. I empathize with the voters who just want to understand how they can cast a ballot and be confident that their vote counts. I know our electoral process can be complicated, even without confusing information spread online or in the community. That is why I stress the importance of data in everything we do in the Office of the Secretary of State. It is impossible to make real improvements for our constituents if we focus on gut feelings or what we've seen on social media. We have been focused on increasing the data availability to elected officials, the media, and the public, so that we can identify where and how we can improve our processes. Transparency is key, so let's get to the data. We have 17 county elections officials in Nevada, 15 of whom are elected, and the other 2 in Clark and Washoe counties who are appointed. We also have 18 city clerks who are elected or appointed depending on their city charter. We work with about 150 other full-time state, county, and city staff to administer elections as required by state and federal law. One of the more common questions we hear is, what exactly do you do as an elections official? It's a lot, and it's not just during an election year. This slide lists just some of the requirements for elections officials. You'll notice it includes ongoing tasks that are conducted on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, as well as election-specific tasks that are conducted within the 120 days leading up to each election day and for weeks after. We could spend hours talking about each of these requirements. We won't, don't worry, but I would love to. But this is a single slide represents thousands of hours of work and coordination across the state involving partner agencies, all with the sole purpose of ensuring that Nevadan voters have safe and secure elections and can cast a ballot in a safe and secure space in accordance with our laws in the manner of their choosing. It's an incredible amount of work to do all this and do it successfully, and I'm honored to work alongside these dedicated patriots. I would like to go into a little bit more detail on the role that each of us play. To start, the Secretary of State's office is one of the original constitutional offices established in the Nevada Constitution and is responsible for maintaining the official records of the acts of the legislature and the executive branch. Additional duties have been added over time and range from the Chief Elections Officer to the Register of Business Entity Filings, one of my favorite, to Administrator of Uniform Securities Act to keep our investments safe. In my capacity as Nevada's Chief Elections Officer, it is my legal duty to ensure that all state and federal laws relating to the conduct of elections are executed and enforced. To assist me with the execution and enforcement of state and federal election laws, I am joined by Deputy Secretary Mark Velashan and the Elections Division behind me. Deputy Velashan has 17 full-time staff members whose roles and responsibilities are focused on supporting county and city elections officials, investigating allegations relating to elections crimes, supporting expanded voter education and outreach, and addressing the questions and needs of the public. We have an additional 27 contractors who are supporting the implementation of the Voter Registration and Election Management System, or VREMS, which we will be giving updates on shortly. They work closely with county and city election officials to ensure that the project stays on task, on track, and remains under budget. I want to highlight that while I may have opinions about policy, my elections division remains firmly nonpartisan in their duties and focuses on the execution and enforcement of the laws as written. I have directed both Chief Deputy DeCara and Deputy Velashin to ensure that someone is present to answer your questions for both your committees and to provide fiscal and operational analysis of proposed bills without any partisanship. This is about Nevada first. As our county elections officials, you will be hearing from quite a few of them this legislative session. They are great people. I am pleased to see that 3 are on the agenda today and will be presenting in detail about the challenges they face in the role that they have. I do want to call out that there is a drastic difference in the resources available to all of our 17 county clerks and registrars. You can see on the slide that the average number of staff between our 2 largest and 15 smaller counties is significant. Still, all 17 must follow the same state and federal requirements, conduct the same test on voting systems, the same ballot development, and proofing of those ballots. Yes, Clark and Washoe have approximately 88% of the electorate, but the increases in responsibilities for all county officials over the last 6 years has greatly increased their workloads. Many of these individuals have additional duties beyond administering the elections. Our 18 city clerks and their staff are another appreciated partner. While they have fewer elections-related duties than our county clerks and registers, their involvement in the process greatly enhances voter education and outreach in coordination with city leadership. Now on to one of my favorite topics, our voters. I am extremely proud of the work done by our state, county, and city elections officials, all to support the needs of our electorate. To that end, my goals are, 1, to ensure that all 2.1 million active registered voters are aware of how they can vote safely and securely in Nevada's elections. And 2, that our electoral process is being conducted as required by state and federal law. As of January 1st, 2025, there were approximately 2.1 million active registered voters in Nevada. It is important to clarify what that means. To be an active registered voter simply means that we have verified the identity and address for a voter. An inactive voter means that we have received a returned piece of official elections mail that was identified as being undeliverable, or a voter has failed to respond to a confirmation notice from their county clerk. In fact, it is possible to be an active voter without having voted for the past few years. It is also possible to be an inactive voter, but then go to the polling location on election day, show your Nevada driver's license or tribal ID to reclaim your active status and vote. Looking at the last few years, our electorate has continued to grow as more and more people move to the great state of Nevada, likely to take advantage of the amazing business licensing opportunities that we have in this state. This continued growth matters because it means that many of our requirements continue to increase as well. There are more voters to register and registration updates to review. There is a need for more voting machines and additional polling locations. We also have more voters who have moved here from other states with different election laws and processes. So there is a continued need to educate voters on what we do and why we do it. Looking at political party affiliations, you can see that the trend over the last 10 years of more and more voters selecting a minor party or no political affiliation when they register to vote. There has been speculation about the cause, which may be due in some part to the automatic voter registration or the AVR process. Now, I'll shift my focus slightly to talk about how Nevadans voted during the 2024 election cycle. This data breaks down the actuals for how Nevadans choose to cast their ballot. In addition to some small county and jurisdictional elections, we had 3 statewide elections in 2024. Pretty significant for our county officials, but they did it. The presidential preferential primary was our first in February. By law, that closed primary was only available for individuals who registered with the Democratic and Republican parties, which is the reason the total registered voters is so low in comparison to the other statewide elections. For the presidential preferential primary, mail ballots were sent to only active registered Democrats and Republicans, and there was only 1 week of early voting. Turnout was slightly more than 18% of the total possible voters. The vast majority of those who did turn out voted by mail ballot. A few short months later, and I mean a few short months later in election time, our June primary, which also features some closed primary elections, had slightly higher turnout. There are 3 ballots that are created for our June primary elections: a Republican ballot, a Democratic ballot, and a nonpartisan ballot with nonpartisan offices such as school board. The June primary is the most challenging of the 3 elections to set up at an administrative level because of the 3 different ballot styles. The general election in November, as you can see, had the far greater turnout than the first 2 elections, with more than a million voters casting a ballot. I want to take a moment to discuss the changing trends in how Nevada electorate cast a vote. This chart shows the data from all general elections since 2000, alternating, of course, between midterm election and a presidential election. Until 2020, generally 10% or less of the ballots were cast by mail ballot. From that point forward, almost half of the ballots cast have been mail ballots. In a few moments, you will hear from some of our county elections officials on how that impacted them and their staffs. Since 2020, the next most popular method of voting has been in person during the 2-week period of early voting, with an average of 35% of the votes being cast during that time. Election day turnout now averages approximately 17%. The same information, now shown differently, shows how the electorate has shifted its preference to vote by mail over the last 5 years. A number of voters used our EASE system this year, or the effective absentee system for elections, identified in statute as the approved system for electronic return. Originally created in 2012 and expanded for use through legislation in 2021 and 2023, this secure system allows Nevadans to register and cast a ballot from anywhere in the world. The system is available to active duty service members, their spouses, and voting age dependents, overseas citizens, voters with a disability, and tribal voters who live on a colony or a reservation. A record-breaking 6,848 voters used the system this year during the general election, including our very first tribal voters from 11 different tribes and bands. I'm very proud of the security of this system. The Department of Defense identified the EASE system here in Nevada as a potential best practice to expand voting for military members across the country. This system has so much potential, and I'm certain there will be further discussions about it during the weeks ahead. Mark, or Deputy Velashan?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Apologies.
Good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw, Chair Mosca, and members of the committees. Mark Velashan, Deputy Secretary of State for Elections, for the record. MARKWLASCHIN. Regarding the voting systems used for in-person voting, the elections ecosystem includes a wide range of systems and machines, including tabulators, mail ballot sorters, ballot scanners, an election management system, and finally, the machines that you stand in front of to cast your ballot. We still have only 2 approved systems, Dominion and Election Systems and Software, or ES&S. Dominion voting systems are used in 15 counties, and ES&S are used in Carson City and Lander County. This slide summarizes the type and quantity of voting systems used in our state. One change that you will notice during the 2026 election cycle coming up is the transition to ballot marking devices. These systems, also approved by the Federal Elections Assistance Commission, or EAC, and the Secretary's Office, are offered by the same vendors and use a slightly different process. Instead of using the voter verifiable paper audit trail, or VVPAT, that's the box that sits to the side that contains a paper roll and a record of your vote, voters will then make their selections on the voting machine, and then it will print a paper ballot for them to review. In many cases, the voter inserts the ballot into the tabulators themselves. This transition to ballot marking devices at the county level was based on voter input and will hopefully increase confidence in the electoral process. It's already being used in 6 counties: Lander, Carson, White Pine, Esmeralda, Eureka, and Mineral, with positive feedback from voters. Still focusing on how Nevadans vote, but shifting slightly to where they vote, this slide depicts the number of polling locations and ballot drop boxes available to voters throughout the general election. Each represents extensive planning, contractual agreements, and overcoming staffing and logistics challenges to make sure they are set up and functional during the posted hours. Most of us might go to one polling place during an election, perhaps when we vote or drop off our ballot. But this web of polling places across our state takes incredibly hard work by our county election officials to put them all together and to make an election happen. Our voters regularly have questions about our elections, and we have made a deliberate and focused effort to enhance the quality and timeliness of our voter outreach and education. Last year, we received almost 13,000 calls and 5,000 emails. Without weekends and holidays, that averages to approximately 49 calls per day and 18 emails. We've streamlined how we answer calls, increased staffing, and continue to develop methods to provide clear and concise information to voters. Our language access and voter education programs have enabled us to greatly expand the scope of our outreach by connecting us with our community leaders who have helped us shape messaging. It is not surprising that an 18-year-old voter in Las Vegas and a 75-year-old voter in Battle Mountain have different concerns and questions, and we're now in a place where our staff can adapt to those differences to meet the needs of the voters.
Hello, folks. Gabriel DeCara, Chief Deputy Secretary of State, GAB RIEL, DI space capital CHIARA. Another key component to our support of the electorate stems from compliance. As Chief Officer of Elections, the Secretary is responsible for the execution but also the enforcement of election law. During the 2023 legislative session, we were approved to add additional capacity to our staff and now have dedicated investigators who research every allegation relating to elections. We take each of these seriously and, when appropriate, make referrals to the criminal investigators within the Secretary of State's Securities Division. It's worth noting that of the over 1,000 election integrity violation reports our office received in 2024, only a handful have led to a finding of potential civil or criminal violations of election law. Another key part of our security posture is the Election Integrity Task Force. The EITF is a collaboration between a number of federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies and the Secretary of State as the lead agency. The EITF formally meets every election, with all members maintaining routine and clear lines of communication between elections, sharing best practices, threat warnings, and new developments. We had the most participation with the EITF this year and hope to sustain these relationships and advances as we look to prepare for the 2026 election cycle. As staff transitions throughout the various agencies involved in the EITF, we've implemented regular trainings and communications to streamline collaboration among the offices. Regarding elections-related bills that were passed during the last session, some of these were quick to implement and others of them are still ongoing. There was Senate Bill 54, which required an annual training event and the creation of the Elections Procedure Manual. The training has come leaps and bounds in a very short time, and we're continuing to review methods to continue to enhance it. The Procedure Manual has gone through initial development and is also undergoing further refinement. Later this year, we'll be inviting members of the public to provide feedback prior to our bringing the manual to the Legislative Commission. Both the training and procedure manual are critical to our ability to prepare new elections officials and staff given the continued challenge of retention and turnover. There was Assembly Bill 192, which standardized certain information related to mail ballots, allowed for the creation of a statewide mail ballot contract, and incorporated a select few cleanup items prior to the 24 election cycle. There's still progress to be made, but when it comes to standardization and uniformity, but the statewide mail ballot contract was a success.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Senate Bill 216 helped expand tribal voter access by allowing tribal voters who live on a colony or reservation the opportunity to use the e-system, and that was a huge success. Requirements and the number of logistical challenges. 286 focused on with their county clerks to find ways to make it work, but there are conflicts between the text of the law and the provisions of our same-day voter registration statutes that likely need to be fixed.
Gabriel DeCara, for the record. Senate Bill 327 also supports tribal voting access. Previously, tribes had to opt in to get a polling place or ballot drop box on their colony or reservation. This bill made it a requirement unless they opt out. There are further opportunities to expand implementation, but this first election cycle was a success from the standpoint of enabling voters to vote in some of our most remote communities.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Senate Bill 406. Thank you. This was a true message of bipartisanship support sent to elections officials across our state. It still gives me chills. I believe that because this bill was passed with urgency. There was a sharp decline this year in this election cycle in the threats and harassment that election officials experience when compared to previous election cycles. So thank you. We are collectively able to focus on our jobs and to make sure the needs of the electorate are addressed. The passage of Bill 418 created a questionnaire that non-incumbent judicial candidates were required to fill out and submit for publication on the website of their filing office. This requirement, we believe, greatly helped with voter understanding of the differences in judicial candidates and directly led to a more informed electorate. There are two bills that were passed during the 2021 session that are still being implemented. Assembly Bill 422 initiated the Voter Registration Election Management System Project, or VREMS, which transitioned our state to an updated, centralized election management system and voter registration database. The first phase of this project came in under budget and on time, which is a testament to our amazing team and the hard work everyone put into it, including our county clerks. Thank you to them. The project greatly increased the security and the transparency of the 2024 general election and all future elections. Phase 2 is currently underway, and it includes a number of enhancements and a full integration with Clark County.
Gabriel DeCara. Assembly Bill 432 mandated a change to the automatic voter registration process, as well as an expansion of the number of automatic voter registration agencies. This expansion and change has been implemented with the DMV, but the other agencies involved have not been able to start due to a lack of guidance from the federal government about potential conflicts between state and federal law.
Mark Voloshin, for the record. 10 petitions were filed with the Office of the Secretary of State in 2024, 2 of which qualified for the general election ballot and were voted on by voters. Both passed and will return to the general election ballot in 2026. One statutory petition was deemed sufficient and has been transmitted to the legislature. Our state constitution requires that the petition shall take precedence over all other measures except appropriations bills. It must or shall, according to the constitutional text, be enacted or rejected within 40 days, or else the Secretary will have to put it on the 2026 general election ballot for a vote by the voters. Of note, the 40th day of the session is March 14th. The dates petitions may be first filed in 2025 and 2026 are listed on the slide, as well as the required number of signatures that must be gathered across all 4 petition districts. While we know that you are not at money committees, it is worth noting that the Help America Vote Act grant has approximately $3 million remaining. This intermittent federal grant is intended to help the improvement of the administration of federal elections. It is not a guarantee, and we are unable to rely on the federal government to provide appropriate funding for our elections. The HAVA grant was used this past biennium to enable the first phase of the VREMS project.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Looking to the future, there are a number of projects underway that will further enhance the accessibility, the security, the transparency of our elections. My top priority for elections is the successful completion of the next phase of the VREMS project. The security and transparency this project provides are vital to the 2026 election cycle. We must continue to take care of the human component of our elections administration. and address the retention of our state and county elections officials. Without the professionals who administer our elections at the state, county, and city levels, no amount of funding or programmatic changes will make a difference. Finally, we must continue our language access and voter outreach efforts across the state and to all groups of voters. Our electoral process is complex, but not magic. The more we can educate the public, the press, and the community leaders, the more we will be able to build confidence and gain their trust. We don't make it up as we go along. We simply follow the laws and regulations. We hope that our education of the public will demystify the process and help reduce divisiveness that has become far too common. I would like to thank the legislature for their continued support during this and previous election cycles. This concludes our presentation. We look forward to any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Secretary Aguilar, Chief Deputy DeCara, and Deputy Woloshyn. I have one question, and then I'll go to Assembly Majority Leader Howdigi. You talked a lot about the VREM system and the top-down registration system. For the new members, can you just kind of go over what the advantages are for us going to the top-down voter registration system compared to what we have had in the past?
Yeah, Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. The top-down voter registration really helped us create a unified system throughout the state. Prior to the passage of that law and the implementation of the VREM system, we had 17 counties on 17 different systems doing 17 different processes. With one system now, we can have one single database. It builds security into the process. We have one of the most secure systems in the entire United States. We should be proud of what we were able to accomplish for this election cycle when it comes to security. What it also allows us to do is to better manage the voter maintenance process. We have one database now where we can look at every registered voter in the state. If a voter moves from Clark County to Nye County, we are able to track that, and we are able to ensure that there are not duplicate registrations for that voter. It also helps us ensure that people are not double voting. So somebody voted in Washoe County, decided to drive down to Carson City, the system would be able to catch that in real time, and we'll be able to notify the voter that they are doing what they are doing. So the system gives us great opportunity to understand what we need to do with the voters. It allows us to better serve the voters because it makes the voting process more efficient. You saw the long lines during the election day cycle. We were able, because of our system, our poll workers were able to manage that demand and do it in a way that made them feel confident in the job that we were doing. And so when you talk to voters, I hope you hear from them that they have appreciated the new registration and the voter system. So thank you. Additional comments from either of you?
Thank you very much, Secretary Aguilar. Appreciate your office's hard work on implementing the top-down voter registration systems. I know for many years we've talked about it, talked about wanting to get to that point, and now we're actually seeing it happen. Assembly Majority Leader Howdigi.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I was so excited to see the top-down voter registration program come to fruition. When I chaired legislative operations and elections in 2019, we were talking about it then. And so I'm so glad to see it, live and happening. And that's what my question is around. Phase 1 is completed. You're getting ready to complete phase 2. And so I want you to talk about what phase 2 entails and how the governor's clawback of the $4.5 million intended for phase 2 is going to impact your office and your ability to implement phase 2 of this top-down system.
Thank you for the question, Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Phase 2 is a critical portion of this because Clark County went onto the system earlier than the rest of the state. We were able to get all 16 counties onto the state system for the general election. Clark County started a bit earlier because of the mass number of voters that they have. We are using the same vendor, the same system. It is now our responsibility to merge those two systems into one. We did not want to take the risk of having our biggest county hold back the rest of the state, but also too, we wanted to make sure the system worked for the biggest county before we went to the other 16 counties. And now that system, we are working with them, we are speaking with them daily, weekly. Our teams are dedicated to that effort. Yes, we did not use the entire appropriation that we were given in 23 to implement phase 1. So that money has, I understand, I'm new to this, that there's reversion, there's reverted, there's something, I don't know. But we are making an appropriations request to maintain the ability to enter phase 2 and phase 3 of the system. The more these systems are one, the better transparency we can give a voter. The amount of data that we are able to get about the voter experience to be able to better plan for future elections is significant. I mean, to look at some of the challenges we had from ballot processing, to understand where those bottlenecks were, because we had this system to tell us and give us that data and build that transparency for the voter so that they can know at all times where their ballot is. I've said this last session and I will say it again. We should be able to track our ballots like we do a pizza when we order a pizza on an online system. That transparency should exist.
Majority Leader Howdy, do you have a follow-up?
Just to add, Gabriel DeCara, for the record, the Secretary was very focused on getting this project complete, as he said, on time and under budget. We know that any government, not just any particular state or agency, has large-scale IT implementations are difficult. So the budget was something that we watched very carefully. To be frank, we did not want to make the assumption that we would be able to hold on to those dollars. So we thought, there's a process by which they go back to the legislature. So we did build into our one-shot request that will be coming before the legislature everything that we would need to complete phase 2 and phase 3 of the project. So our hope is that there will be no, should that one-shot request be granted, that there will be no delay or effect to the program.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. And I think the state should be proud in the teams that implemented this system. There are other states in this country who have been in this project for 3 years. We did it in 14 months. And so we did something pretty cool, and we did something extremely good. So,
Follow-up, Chair?
Please go ahead.
Thank you
Majority
for that, and that is something to recognize and say thank you for doing it so quickly, and from what I'm hearing, under budget. So none of that $4.5 million was going to be used for phase 2, correct?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, that is correct.
Okay, perfect. And then just because we had this presentation yesterday, so the numbers are still fresh in my head, but it looks like there was another clawback or reversion happening from your office, which is $4.8 million for enhancements to Silver Flume. Can you walk us through what kind of impact that's going to have for businesses in our state?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Yes, that is, again, Project Orion is that project. We did make a request for that system. We did get to the place where we needed, so Silver Flume is a very old technology. It is a legacy system. It is frustrating. I was an attorney who did corporate filings, and I hated to deal with that system. And it has been one of my biggest priorities, along with VREMS, because of the fact that we know how the impact it has on small business. We were able to get the system to what's called a minimal viable product, which means it functions at a minimal viable function. But over the last 2 years, we have implemented over 500 bug fixes. That is a significant amount of fixes for any IT team. We also have been able to reduce our call times and our hold times from almost 90 minutes down to 7 minutes. That is giving Nevadans the time back to go running their business and earning money so they can continue to grow our economy. It's my goal to ensure that we get government out of the way of Nevadans to allow them to do what they do best and be proud of what they're doing and be proud to be in Nevada. So yes, we are in the middle of complete replacement of Silver Flume. We have selected a vendor, Spiridion. The teams are far down the line. We will have phase 1 completed by the end of June. We will have, which is UCC, which was our biggest vulnerability and liability as a state, because UCCs are very important when it comes to financing. And if you don't have accurate records or access to accurate records, that creates a huge liability on any financing company. We've been able to fix it with included in the 500 bugs, but now we are really making sure that is the phase 1 of Project Orion under the Spiridion contract. We will enter phase 2, which is the corporate filing system. So yes, we did revert some of that money back, but we did make a budget request to continue the project and make sure we reach completion on Project Orion.
Any follow-up, Majority Leader?
No, we'll see you in Ways and Means, so I'll hold the question. Probably more. finance related to the policy. Thank you.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, I could talk about Project Orion for hours and days. I can give you financial numbers, I can give you daily revenue numbers, I can give you fixes, but this is the amount of data I'm getting on a daily basis on the system because I want to ensure we are doing what we are supposed to do as the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Thank you, Majority Leader Howdicky. Next in the queue, I have Senator Daly, and then members, if there anybody else has a question, please let me know. If I raise a hand, just so I don't miss anybody. Senator Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question, I think it'll be relatively quick. On the election manual, and I know that I thought we saw something where you could make small updates and various things on that. Are we done with the election manual or still in progress? I know it's an undertaking, a little bit of time. I just wanted to get an update, a status update.
Thank you for the question, Senator. Mark Voloshin for the record. The Elections Procedure Manual is still in refinement and moving forward. And that's part of the reason why, as was mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're planning on bringing it to the public to get the public feedback. We've identified some opportunities to improve it, really to shape the document itself. It's, again, about 500 pages, a little bit cumbersome perhaps to physically carry, but again, it's full of very useful information. So we're trying to arrange it so that it's geared towards election officials, but also to members of the public, and setting it up so that the chapters that focus on the public are oriented to candidates, PACs, and petitioners, and really, again, to provide it in a useful, almost an elections for dummies sort of style. And then once that's completed, again, we'll bring it to the Legislative Commission. So is it functional and reviewable? Absolutely. It is. We have printed copies. If you're interested, I could have to get a truck, it feels like, because it's so big to bring to you, but we could certainly bring a copy to show you to maybe one of the committees if there's interest in that. But it is certainly, it's come a very long way. It's in a good spot, and we're looking to have it continue to improve before the 26th cycle.
Gabriel DeCara for the record. One thing that I just want to add, as Deputy Voloshin said, the goal is to make this manual very much useful in real time for elections officials, but also to help in the training of new election workers. As the Secretary said, one of the benefits of VREMS is having the counties on the same system, having those procedures be universal, allows the state to assist with training, allows this procedure manual to not just be something that's like, turn to page 200, here's what you're not doing right, but when there are new staff across the state, they'll have a resource to go to. So we're very grateful for the passage of that bill, and we think it's going to be very helpful moving forward.
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up from Senator Daly.
Just real quick, no, and I appreciate that, and I knew it was coming, and I know it has to go to the Legislative Commission. I hadn't seen it yet, and you guys remember how we ended up there, and I think that'll be beneficial to everybody in the end. But I do want you to take your time, make sure you get it right, because it's designed not to be changed that easily, and I know there's some minor updates and those types of things that you can make, but wholesale changes has to go back through the regulatory process. But so take your time, get it right. I just wanted an update. Thank you.
I apologize. We have to take a 1-minute recess. We're having a little technical problem with our connection to the Las Vegas hearing room. So if I could ask everyone to be at ease, and then I will see if there are any other questions. So presenters, if I could ask you to either hang tight, or if you need to use the restroom, feel free. We're just trying to correct this audio problem to Las Vegas. Members, if anyone needs to use the bathroom, feel free. Hi, members. Thanks everyone for their patience. We think we may have a solution to the audio problem to Las Vegas. If you can hear me down in Las Vegas, please, yep, it sounds like we've solved it. Thank you very much. Got some great attorneys down there who are also pretty good engineers, so thank you for your help. And Mr. Secretary, Chief Deputy, appreciate your patience. Members, any additional questions for our Secretary of State, Chief Deputy DeCara, Deputy Woloshyn? Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to thank all of you for the hard work that you do on the elections. That is a difficult job, and I mean that statewide, all the way through, all the way down. Mr. Secretary, you mentioned the hysteria and the speculation that we hear about our elections and all of the online information and misinformation that comes across. A part of that feeds into that, I think, is the length of time that it takes for us to get our election results compared to other states. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I do believe that that is part of the issue as to why some of that speculation is there. What do you think we can do to improve that?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, that's where the VREM system and the data analysis came into important play. We're able to grab data and look at where the ballots were throughout the election cycle process, including election day and the day after election. And analyzing that data and working with our counties in Washoe and Clark, we're able to understand that the challenge and the bottleneck in the counting and processing timelines are the ballots that are received on election day at the election centers in the drop boxes. For example, in Clark County received about 56,000 ballots in the drop boxes on election day. Those 56,000 ballots took time for Clark County to process. Now that we've identified that as the problem, Clark County has come up with a solution to be able to build their capacity up to 80,000 ballots on election day, and I would defer to the Registrar Lorena Portillo to be able to answer that question directly for you on the exact specifics of being able to address that bottleneck. We know that 9,000 ballots in Clark County are received after Election Day. About 95% of those 9,000 are received in the day after election, and then it significantly drops the second, third, and fourth day. So we know the bottleneck issue is Election Day drop box ballots. Also, too, I think we are working, and we do have legislation introduced to bring more transparency into the process so that voters can understand where the ballots are at all times in real time. Without having to ask or guess, everybody will know that there are X number of ballots received, there are X numbers being processed, X number being tabulated, so we do not have to guess. And so hopefully we can have more conversations about that transparency, but again, it goes back to that data and being able to know at all times where a ballot is like a pizza.
Thank you. Chair, could I ask a follow-up? Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Senator Steinbeck.
Thank you for that answer. And then, so you said there were 9,000 mail-in ballots that were received after Election Day?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State in Clark County, that is correct.
In Clark County.
Yeah,
So,
we do have a one-pager, and we're happy to share that data with you, and it walks through every single data step.
okay. So again, that's an area that provides widespread speculation. What would be your objection, or what would be the problem with having those ballots required to be in by Election Day like in other states?
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State, I don't think that solves the problem with the bottleneck that we have. If you move the date, you still have the 56,000 ballots that come in the drop boxes that need to be processed. 9,000 ballots is 1%, less than 1% of the overall ballots tabulated in Clark County. I see that there are priorities other than that moving of the date as significant. My number one priority is figuring out how to get those 56,000 ballots processed, not only in Clark, but in Washoe, because we know what's going to work in Clark will help work in Washoe as well. There are other priorities, such as signature cure, that need to be addressed as well, which is probably high. The number in signature cure is much higher than the 9,000 received after Election Day at Clark County. We also need to look at provisional ballots and the way same-day voter registration works. So as we go down the priority list of impacting getting Nevadans the results they need, there is a priority list that is determined solely by the data and looking at the data.
No, I agree that that would be the highest priority, but it does seem like we could fix even the down priority items much easier.
But again, it goes to looking at the data and understanding how many ballots are being received the day after election through the United States Postal Service. Again, it's only 1% of the total ballots cast. When you have 56,000 ballots that are being dropped off, we have other issues and challenges that I think we need to make as a priority to be able to address this and get Nevadans the information that they want and being more transparent about those processes.
Gabriel DeCara, for the record. I just wanted to add to some of those numbers the Secretary was providing. For example, there were in Clark County, I believe it was over 12,000 uncured ballots. Was that the Clark County number? And so, there are two things. One, obviously, elections in Nevada are very close. We're a purple state. Many of our districts are incredibly close districts. As long as voters who have cast their ballots have the opportunity to cure those ballots, for example, it will be very difficult to forecast some of our closest districts. And then again, as the Secretary said, we know that as the ballots need to be, the processing takes time. Our election law is, some sections of it are very old. It absolutely was not written top to bottom with the idea of a top-down statewide system. We believe, as the Secretary said, there are efficiencies that we can find that will speed up that processing. But as long as elections in Nevada are as close as they have been, as long as we regularly have voters who make up their mind from election cycle to election cycle, which candidates they're going to support and not voting on party lines, it will be difficult to call those races kind of no matter what we do about the mail ballots.
Cisco Aguilar, Secretary of State. Again, I think we have to recognize, too, the improvements we made in the 24 elections. And those improvements were significant. We were able to put out 90% of the election results election night, which was a significant improvement from previous election cycles. And that was because of the hard work and the effort of our elections clerks.
I agree with the hard work, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Secretary, and thank you, Chief Deputy and Deputy Woloshyn. Any additional questions, members? Okay, not seeing any additional questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very informative, and we appreciate all the hard work that your office is doing, especially on the top-down voter registration system and in all the other areas where you're assisting voters to be able to participate. With that, we're going to move to the next item on our agenda. We have an overview of county election administration in Nevada. We are very lucky to have Amy Bergens, Clerk Treasurer of Douglas County, Lorena Portillo, Registrar of Voters, Clark County, and Linda Rothery, Clerk Treasurer of Churchill County, here to join us. And whoever would like to begin, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Orenshall and Chair Mosca, and members of both committees. I am Douglas County Clerk Treasurer Amy Bergens.
Ms. Bergens, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is your microphone on? We're having a little trouble hearing you. Do you see the red light?
I see the red light. Is
Now
that
I'll hear
better?
you better. Okay, thank you.
I will start over. Good afternoon, Chair Orenshall and Chair Mosca, and members of both committees. I am Douglas County Clerk Treasurer Amy Bergens, AMYBURGANS, and I am thrilled to be back before you again this year. What an amazing 2 years it has been since we were last together. I'd like to start with just a quick introduction to those of you who are new this year or that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet. I started my career in the United States Army, where I served as a military police officer. I received my degree in business with a certificate in management, and in 2023, I attained the national certification as an elections and registration administrator. I am the proud mother of 5 children. My oldest son currently serves on active duty in the United States Army and is currently on an airplane returning from South Korea, so that's why they front-loaded me. So if I rush out of here, it's because I'm headed to the airport to give him a big ol' hug. My second son is currently enrolled at UNR and is in the PhD program for nuclear physics. And my third son graduated from UNR and lives in Wisconsin. My younger two children are still in high school here in Northern Nevada in Douglas County, and my daughter Natalie is here with us today. I've been serving as the clerk treasurer of Douglas County since December of 2020.
Help you here a little bit.
What did I do?
Nothing. I'm trying to get it into mode.
There, I did it. Thank you, Ann. Ann works for Douglas County elections during non-legislative years, so she has my back all the time. I apologize, I lost track. Douglas County is one of the largest rurals as far as population. As Mr. Volashin and the secretary pointed out, there are many counties in our state that are working with just 1 or 2 deputies to cover all of the various departments. When we start talking about new legislation, we must consider all the counties and how we successfully implement this new legislation safely and securely across the state, no matter what the size of the county. I'd like to start by giving you a high overview of the 2024 election and paint a picture of what elections look like in Douglas County. I currently have 3 full-time election staff. I also hire 4 temporary election staff during the election cycle to assist in the office, with training of election workers and overall support during the election cycle. Due to the nature of same-day registration, I also pull my 7 staff members from the clerk's office and 5 staff from the treasurer's office to assist during early voting and on election day on-site at the vote centers. They cover high-level voter registration for same day, and they also cover questions from the voters that are a little bit higher level than what an election worker might be trained on. In 2024, I hired over 130 election workers to assist at Douglas County vote centers during early voting and on election day, to also assist in the mail ballot deconstruction. As you can see by the amount of full-time staff I have, I'm one of the lucky counties that has more than the 2.2 full-time election staff or full-time staff that most of the rurals have. I'm very blessed in Douglas County that my commissioners see the need to have full-time, year-round election staff. So across the state, the clerks serve in many functions. In Douglas County, I am the clerk and the treasurer. In some counties, the clerk is also the clerk to the courts, and in other counties, the clerk is also the recorder. The clerks throughout Nevada serve in various roles and have many duties, most of which are statutorily required. So let's start with some of the duties in my clerk's office. We do marriage licenses, we do DMV services, we supply passport services, we are clerk to the Board of Commissioners, to the Planning Commission, to the Debt Management Commission, to the County Board of Equalization, and to the Board of Health, and we do notary bond filings. In my treasurer's office, we do cash collection for the various county departments, reconcile county bank accounts daily, oversee the county investment accounts, and bill and collect the county's property taxes. In the elections office, we maintain the voter registration, which is year-round. We do automatic voter registration, and right now it's currently DMV, but as we'll talk about a little bit later, we are moving to other agencies also, state agencies. List maintenance is an ongoing project. It is daily. We are daily in our voter rolls and ensuring that our lists are current and up to date. We do petitions. During every election cycle, we do pre and post logic and accuracy testing on all of our voting equipment. We do sample ballots, mail ballots, early voting, election day voting, drop boxes, and our risk limiting audit. This is a visual of what 2024 looked like for my office and my 15 staff members. The blue are the tasks that were election related, the gray are the clerk related, and the green are the treasurer related. As you can see, 2024 was a busy year. A good amount of the blue tasks were due to the implementation of the new VREM system. Of course, last year was also the first year of the presidential preference primary, which added a third election to the year. That meant that by September of 2023, we were well into election planning that did not let up until December of 2024. This year, 2025, is not an election year, but we are still very busy implementing multiple future phases of the VREMS project on top of our other non-election related duties. We are also planning, well, when I made this, I was under the impression we were doing 3 or 4 mock elections, but yesterday I found out it's probably 4 or 5 mock elections this year, just to test the future phases of the system and ensure that they are ready for the 2026 election cycle. Off-election years are also when we try to get big projects done, as there is more time to focus on them across my departments. From scanning of historical documents and cleaning up GIS data, there is always something that needs to be done in the offices to ensure the future success of my team and potentially my successor one day. To continue painting a picture for you of elections in Douglas County, I wanted to present the numbers from the 2024 election cycle in Douglas County. As you can see, the turnout for the PPP was incredible. Was incredibly, I would say even historically, low. Douglas County prides itself in having high voter turnout. However, we had 30,686 eligible voters, meaning those that were registered to a major party, and yet only 9,133 people participated in that election. A few months later, in the primary election, we also saw historically low for Douglas County turnout, with only 32% of our voters turning out to vote. I have theories on why that happened, but for now, I will just say how disappointing it is to throw such an amazing party and have so few people turn out to participate. The general election had much better turnout, as most presidential general elections do. In Douglas County, we saw an amazing turnout of almost 85%. You can also see that mail ballots are a hit amongst our voters. I would note that over half of our mail ballots that were received back from voters were turned into us as drop-offs and not sent through the Postal Service. Trust in mail ballots has increased significantly in my 4 years in office, but trust in the Postal Service has not increased at the same rate. So why am I here today? First, I believe it is important to talk about previous legislation that has been passed, where we are at implementing it, where cleanup can be done to ensure that NRS is clear and successfully written, and what needs to be tackled in this legislative session for the benefit of all voters across the state. It is very rare for any of us as clerks to come before you in support or opposition to any election-related BDR. When we collaborate as clerks behind the scenes on potential legislation, we are looking for how we are going to successfully roll it out to the voter. We are not in the business of making law. We are in the business of implementing it. How you as legislators write and pass the legislation has a direct correlation on how successful we are in implementing the law and how together we are able to increase trust in elections with the public. During this session, we will come to you with concerns and provide insight into slight changes that can assist with implementation. We appreciate your willingness to listen and work with us to get the legislation right the first time so that we aren't back here in 2 years asking for cleanup to legislation that was passed in previous sessions. There are cleanup BDRs coming before you this session that are vital to elections and are being presented by the Secretary of State's office. Some of these are born from collaboration between the Secretary's office and the clerks that are running these elections. There are also bills from previous legislations that we are still working on implementing from previous sessions. Universal mail ballots. Deadlines to receive the mail ballots will be a large topic this year. As you know, during every election, we basically run 3 separate elections inside each election: early voting, mail ballots, and election day all require separate planning and implementation for each election cycle. The deadline for receiving mail ballots has a direct correlation on when Nevada is able to provide results to the public. If we want final results sooner, we will need to adjust the due date for mail ballots. Other previously passed legislative items that may be addressed that we are happy to discuss are presidential preference primary, continued implementation of the VREM system, automatic voter registration expansion, and jail or inmate voting. If we don't talk about what works and what has seen challenges before plowing forward with new legislation, we are doing a disservice to our constituents and our voters across the state. AB 126 in the 2021 legislative session, the presidential preference primary. This encompassed both major parties, Democrat and Republican. It also created a lot of confusion from the community. Why was their candidate not on the ballot? What are the results of the election even used for? Why didn't I get a ballot? Because they weren't registered to a major party. Election staff across the state were berated and fielded many calls about confusion and concern over the ballot. Substantial costs to the taxpayers, as it contained not only mail ballots, but a week of early voting and election day for very low results. The AVR expansion. This was passed in 2021 as well. However, due to the implementation of the VREM system for voter registration, the implementation was pushed to January of 2025. We are currently working through the logistical challenges with the implementation of this legislation to include the financial and workload burden it places on the counties. This bill was multifaceted. It expanded automatic voter registration from DMV to also include other agencies. It places the burden of informing the voter that they have been registered from the registration agency to the county clerk, imposing the need for a letter to be generated and sent from the county clerk to every voter that has an automatic voter registration transaction at a qualifying agency. Douglas County already receives almost 1,000 automatic voter registrations per month. Now we have to send a letter along with a return envelope to every one of these voters. This amount will increase as new state agencies join this program. The amount of time that this will take for the counties, along with the fiscal burden it places on each county, needs to be discussed, as these are unintended consequences of previously passing this bill. VREMs. I won't go too deep into the history of the VREMs project. The Secretary and his team have already done so. But this was a vital need in Nevada to implement a statewide voter registration system. This was a long time coming, and though it was a rough year pushing it through to fruition, it feels good to be on the other side. This system brought each of the counties who were previously on standalone voter registration systems into a statewide system that is shared between the counties. In 2024, we accelerated implementation of the system to meet legislative deadlines. Most states take a minimum of 2 to 4 years to implement a system like this, and we did it in a little over 1 year. Every week, on top of our already extensive workload, the clerks spent a minimum of 5 hours dedicated to virtual meetings about implementation of the system. The counties held 4 mock elections to test the new system and ensure that data transferred successfully and the system integrated with the other voting equipment. Once we had the system where we needed it to be to go live, the clerks and our staff spent countless hours of intense learning on the new system. Once we went live in August of 2024, right before a presidential election, the clerks and some of their staff were working 12 to 18-hour days, 6 to 7 days a week, with little to no breaks. Some of us still have not had a break since the election, as we are now playing catch-up in our office and our other departments. But we did not let Nevada elections fail. Why am I telling you this? And I apologize. I read through this multiple times with my staff to get the emotions out, but here I am. Why am I telling you this? My hope is that this is not coming across as complaining, because I love my job, and so do the other clerks. I am telling you this because of how proud I am of the hard work that each and every clerk and their staff put in to implement this new system in collaboration with the Secretary of State's office this year. It was a year for the record books in Nevada, and though there is still a ton of work that needs to be done to get the system exactly where it needs to be, we successfully ran a presidential election in the new system and flawlessly executed what is a monumental task across the state. I am so proud of my friends, my clerk family, and all that we accomplished. At the end of the day, I am proud to be a Nevadan. We worked so hard and proved that we can do anything if we pull together and collaborate as a team. In the end, it doesn't matter what our party is or who we voted for. In the end, all that mattered was that every vote counted in a safe, secure, and transparent manner. So, I am here today with a plea. Help us help you. We want to be a resource for you. Ultimately, we all desire to make elections safe, secure, accessible, and transparent for all the voters. And by we, I mean you and us. Moving into this session, I would like to focus on the ability to implement legislation that comes before you in every county. Our ability to implement has a direct correlation on the public's trust in elections across this state. So when a bill comes before you and you have questions about the impact it may have throughout the state, ask us. We desire to assist you in ensuring that any unintended consequences have been thoroughly thought through before we pass it. I know that I said we a lot during this presentation. Please understand that I come before you as the clerk treasurer of Douglas County, but I also come before you as a united front with the rural clerks across the state. We are a team. We laugh together, we cry together, and we push through and make elections happen together. These are the faces of Nevada elections, and I am so very proud to call these folks my Nevada family. We are here for you as you move through this session to support you and ensure that you will always have a resource prepared to assist you. So with that, I would like to close by saying thank you to each member of this committee for your dedication and fortitude to the election process in Nevada. It is a group effort for all of us to ensure that we have safe, secure, transparent, and accessible elections. I am here for any questions you currently have at this point, and I have added my contact information to this final slide for any questions you have in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Clerk Treasurer Bergens. Thanks for the presentation. Members, any questions for Clerk Treasurer Bergens? Okay, I don't see any questions. Have a safe drive to the airport. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have our Clark County Registrar of Voters, Lorena Portillo, down at the Las Vegas LCB office. Thanks for your patience, Registrar Portillo.
Lorena Portillo, Lorena, Lorena, Portillo, P as in Paul, Ortillo, Clark County Registrar of Voters. Good afternoon, Chair Orenshaw, Chair Mosca. I would love to begin my PowerPoint, but I can't thank you enough for your support, committee members as well, for all the support you have given us throughout the years. I want to begin by giving a quick overview of what we do at the Clark County Election Department. Thank you for this opportunity, and it's a true honor. We conduct elections in Clark County for federal, state, and local races, including our races in the cities. We collaborate very closely with our cities to ensure we conduct their elections as well. We have almost 1.5 million active registered voters in Clark County. The territory of Clark County encompasses more than 8,000 square miles of territory, and within that territory, we have 917 precincts. Other election-related activities include voter registration, candidate filing, and processing petitions, to mention a few. Conducting an election in Clark County, we provide mail ballot voting and in-person voting to all eligible voters in Clark County. That means that to all active registered voters, we mail a mail ballot. Before we mail the mail ballot, of course, we have to produce the ballot, proof the ballot, so it's a lot of work for our staff members to do. We do not mail ballots if a voter has opted out 60 days prior to Election Day. In-person voting, we provide in-person voting during the early voting period, which is the 14-day period, and of course on Election Day at various vote centers. We hire and recruit and train over 4,000 temporary staff members. Not only do those include election workers, but that also includes staff members that help us at different divisions, at our headquarters and our hotlines. Many folks that help us during the election. We also make sure to have more than 30 election vote centers at our early voting sites, open every day during the 14-day period. We have 137 Election Day sites available for voters to vote on Election Day, 11 of those being in our rural sites. And we do conduct those elections in English, Spanish, and Filipino as required by law. And I want to show a little bit what our election looked like in 2024 compared to 2022. You can see the turnout by vote method. One clear factor you see is the increase in mail ballot voting is steady. However, we still have many voters that prefer to vote in person. Early voting continues to be a very popular method of voting, as well as Election Day. One statistics that you see here in 2024, we went over 1 million voters, 1,033,285 voters participated and voted in this election. Improvements to in-person voting. We, for the very first time at Allegiant Stadium, we had our first super site. It was one of our busiest election sites. What that means, a super site means, just want to clarify, usually we have at a very large site about 45 voting machines, about 10 to 15 poll pads. We had double the size. We had 98 voting machines and 26 poll pads. It was a huge feat. We couldn't do it without our team members, the collaboration with county management, Secretary of State, the Raiders team, and the Allegiant team. It was a big collaboration effort, and it was very successful and with no issues. We did increase our security. It was really important for us, for our voters, but our workers to also feel very comfortable and safe at the polls. We provided security badges that were equipped with emergency buttons. This emergency button would provide immediate assistance from law enforcement if there was an emergency that would occur. We increased the efficiency on election night. We added 16 new flash drive stations to ensure that the process of reading those flash drives coming back from our ICX machines were much faster. Therefore, the election night results were faster this time around. More improvements to mail ballots. Our main focus was on increasing our capacity. We had focused on this a year ago, and we were able to implement a few improvements. It cost about $1.9 million in new equipment, over $300,000 in staffing, and of course, many enhancements to our processes that we had previously. We introduced late night shifts. It was something very difficult, but it worked. We made sure every evening we processed every single mail ballot that came in either by the mail ballot boxes at every single early voting and election day site. and what we received in the mail. What that means is we were able to update voter record every evening, which was very important because we started clean the next day, and our counting board was able to proceed in, sending these ballots to tabulation the following day versus waiting till the next day to do the intake. So that was really important to us, and it was very efficient. Implementing election day processing shifts. We had not done this before. It was overnight shift. Usually during election day, we have little to no mail ballot processing activity, but we didn't stop and we continued overnight, and we were able to complete our processing and tabulation the very next day. This also helped here by adding midday pickups. We added midday pickups, actually 2 during election day and early voting. Again, added more staffing, more rental trucks. It was a logistical feat that really helped us bring back the mail ballots from the different polling place every day. In addition to, bringing back mail ballots every day, hiring more staff, adding more equipment, we expanded our processing areas by adding 16 more stations to the counting board, 6 more stations in the envelope opening area, and 10 more stations to the duplication station area. We also had to expand our areas. The footprint had to be bigger to fit equipment, to fit more staffing, and that is the only way we were able to work the double shifts that I was mentioning earlier. And of course, additional staffing was very, very important. We also added the new process, the signature update forms. We did process over 140,000 signature update forms, which improved the quality of our signatures. That was really important because it increased our acceptance rate from 20 to 30%, which may not seem a whole lot, but in terms of receiving over 400,000 mail ballots, it did make a difference. It was much more efficient. The results of our capacity improvements, our efficiency in making sure our mail ballots come back earlier really paid off. It was a true success. In the past, we did not pick up during the day, and we did not get things back sooner. But because we implemented our overnight shifts and processed those mail ballots on a daily basis every night, added that nightly shift to our team, we were able to tabulate sooner. Usually we would tabulate 1 to 2 days more than we did this time. So we were able to always tabulate the next day once we received the mail ballots. Mail ballots received on election day, we also processed them through the night and during the day. In the past, we did not do that. We did not have enough team members to be able to do that, and we did that this time. We stayed overnight. Many of our team members split their shifts and made sure they continued the process and was ready for the counting board and tabulated the next day. We had never seen that. We have never seen us being able to tabulate the next day, the next evening, with all that we received on election day from the mail and from the polling places. We would have not have been able to do it if we did not increase the capacity. In the past, it took us 2 to 3 days after election day to complete what we received on election day. So that was a true success to what we had implemented, what we invested this year. Additional highlights from 2024, of course, we had our first presidential preference primary that made a very busy year for us. However, we did serve in the general election over 1 million voters for the very first time. SB 406 did appear to work. We did receive a lot less threats and acts of intimidation towards our election workers, which was really important to us. We always want them to feel safe, whether it's at headquarters or at the polls. However, we did increase security regardless. We implemented metal detectors. We utilized them for every visitor coming through our main office, whether it was an observer or a temporary worker. Same-day registration continues to be popular, especially in the general election. This is voter preference when they haven't registered to vote. They, for whatever reason, they have the need to register to vote. They can do that during early voting up until Election Day. Of these folks in the general, we had over 18,000. Keep in mind, these 18,000, we have to look at almost one by one. We have to verify this information, and we only have until Tuesday after Election Day to complete these processes. And of course, it's a huge feat to get this right, but also to complete it by Tuesday and tabulate. Currently, we are preparing for 2026. Clark County is investing more than $9 million in renovating our main election building. This is a very, very important project because this will help us not only expand our mail processing areas, but also our tabulation areas. It will provide additional transparency because the actual observation areas will be expanded. And we are hoping this will be completed by 2026. We will also be able to fit additional equipment if in the future we need to do so, and additional staffing. Clark County is also investing about $6.3 million in new equipment for in-person voting. We will see new printers and scanners at the polling place. The voter will have a new experience, a more hands-on experience. Currently, we have received the equipment. We are configuring everything. We're programming. We're testing new equipment as we speak. Staff members need to be trained. We need to become experts in this new equipment, and that's going to be something that we are focusing on at the beginning of this year. Of course, with all those changes, we have to update many, many documents, job descriptions at the polls, everything that we, learned from 2024, which includes manual updates, all in time, all the system updates, all the equipment updates as well need to be in time for when we begin to recruit. This is as soon as January for the 2026 primary election. Therefore, we're working really hard during these next couple of months to get to those deadlines that we have set. And another high priority item that we have is the top-down registration system. We're working very closely and collaborating. Like Secretary of State Aguilar said, almost every day we have a weekly standing meeting with him and his staff and county management, as well as work groups that we participate with fellow clerks to ensure that we were all on the same page and we can meet that September go-live date. Very, very important. We are currently conducting a gap analysis. We're planning our development strategy. Many conversations are being had, and we have to move pretty fast. There's significant work, even though we already have the total vote system. We have many components that include automations, more than 20 components that include, provisional voting, automatic voter registration, creating new elections that require many automations and much testing. We need to test equipment against this new system, and we are scheduling at least 5 mock elections, which means a total A to Z testing of what we need to conduct an election for the primary and for the general election. And it's going to take many months this year to complete. Just a general timeline of what we're looking at this year. As you can see, we are pretty busy. There's no such thing as an off year for us. We take full advantage of the year. We have new equipment that we're receiving, training staff on the new equipment. Before we show it to the public, we want to make sure we are the experts. We are going to be conducting mock elections. The construction will be happening as well at the same time. Again, mock election after mock election. And once we can determine that we are ready, we can go live October, November. We are finalizing all our election setup, our systems for candidate filing. We have to test those as well. And of course, our last voter list maintenance process happens no later December before the next election. As you can see, once we complete many of those items, we are said to be ready for the 2026 election. Most importantly, for candidate filing in January. Judicial candidate filing begins in January. Again, trainers and recruiters, everything starts happening in February. March, we have non-judicial candidate filing. And of course, April, May, we have to ensure we have everyone aligned and trained for the election, which includes that 4,000 temporary workers that we need every single election cycle. The primary election, early voting is May 23rd through June 5th. Election day is June 9th. Again, right after the election, we begin again to prepare for the general election. August, October, we see more training, making sure we have the right staff to get us through the general election, and of course, system testing and enhancements as needed and as required by law is conducted before the general election. Early voting begins October 17th through the 30th, and election day is November 3rd. Just a general overview of what we're looking at, what we saw in 2024, and what we're doing to making sure we learn from our lessons. And so we never stop learning. We never start making sure we enhance our processes, our systems. I've been at the election department since 1998, and that has been always a rule. We always have to make sure we find ways to make the next election better for our voters, to secure and keep the integrity of the election. And now cybersecurity is another focus. So there's many, many things that we're working on, many new things to come, and I'm here to answer any questions. Of course, we have our legislative team in Carson City, our amazing team, Joanna Jacob and Ashley Kennedy. They also know many things about this process. They could answer questions for you. We are having a tour of February 8th, this Saturday at 10 a.m. You are welcome to attend if you would like to come visit us and take a tour. But I am happy to answer any questions today if you have any. Thank you so much again for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Registrar Portillo, and we do appreciate all the hard work that you and your office does for our constituents, for those of us down from Clark County. You mentioned the top-down voter registration system and your collaboration with Secretary Aguilar on implementing it. And if I could just ask you, similar to what I asked the Secretary, what do you see as the advantages of Nevada going to that top-down system versus what we've had for so many years?
Lorena Portillo, Clark County Registrar of Voters.
Yes, can you hear me? I was just wanted to ask you the advantages you see as Clark County Registrar of us moving to the top-down voter registration system. Oh, we can't hear you. We might be having a technical difficulty, or else maybe your microphone's not on. We will be at ease, members. I think we're having another technical issue. To members of the committee and members of the public, thank you all for your patience. We're having another technical problem that made some great improvements to this room, but we're still just trying to work out the kinks here, so everybody will be at ease. Registrar Portillo, can you hear me?
Lorena Portillo, Clark County Registrar of Voters. Yes, I can, Chair Orenshaw.
Excellent. Committee will come back to order. And I'm not sure if you heard my question. What I said was I appreciated your collaboration with Secretary Aguilar on the top-down voter registration system. As Clark County Registrar of Voters, what do you see as the advantages of us moving to the top-down voter registration system versus what we've had for so many years?
Lorena Portillo, Clark County Registrar of Voters. There is an extreme advantage to, number one, the standardization of reporting. It has been true, I would say, challenge to have a standardized reporting mechanism, from a bottom-up perspective, because, we have our reporting, our system, our formatting, that then the secretary has to, and their team has to, format again. And therefore, there can be, errors happening. There can be columns left off, which can cause confusion and possible reporting errors. So number one is the reporting, I would see. And of course, real-time data. We've always wanted to ensure that the transparency was there, real-time reporting was there, and now we will be able to have this. During the election season, it is extremely important to have real-time data, and therefore, this will give us the opportunity to have that statewide. So it's a huge benefit. We're very excited for it to be implemented. It has been a huge feat, but it is definitely worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any additional questions for Clark County Registrar Portillo? Okay, not seeing any additional questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Next, we'll come back here to Carson City, and we have our Churchill County Clerk Treasurer, Linda Rothery. Thank you for your patience. Thanks for joining us tonight. Please begin.
Thank you for having me here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Just want to make sure I'm coming across. Anyways, Linda Rothery, and that's Linda Rothery. I am the Clerk Treasurer for Churchill County. I've been employed for Churchill County Clerk Treasurer's Office since 2001. In 2018, elected as the Clerk Treasurer. I've conducted elections for 24 years. Churchill County has a population about 26,000, city of Fallon, and of course home of NAS Fallon. My office review is a lot smaller. I have 6 full-time staff. 2 I can assign to elections. I have 2 that I can handle the treasurer's duties, and then I've got 2 that actually do all the commissions and boards. I just made these all in a very general category, so I didn't have to really kind of go into a lot of it. Clerk treasurer duties will include, of course, elections, and then, of course, we've got everything we do for elections. We're maintaining the voter registration rolls and candidate filing and voter outreach, processing mail ballots, UOCAVA military and overseas citizens, recruiting and training poll workers, processing petitions, tabulating results, conducting elections, redistricting. This is all part of it, and there is so much more. Clerk to the board, we do clerk 7 boards, 2 in which, of course, our commissioners are 2 meetings, but we do the full board by doing meetings and agendas, ordinances, minutes, web posting, publications. That does take a lot of time for I have 2 staff doing that to keep that up, following the laws for that. On the clerk side, we do the marriage licenses, marriage officiant, fictitious firm names, and then notary bonds. On the treasurer's side, of course, property taxes, and that is a huge event, all the way from processing and a new tax year, all the way to the delinquent process and tax sales. We collect and process all the county department revenue. We do the banking and, of course, bank reconciliation, and I'm in charge of investments, too. Churchill County has approximately 20,000 registered voters. That is active and inactive numbers. We have 19 precincts. I have 3 polling places, 6 mail ballot drop drop box locations, 50-plus poll workers that we recruit, and we have 65 ICX voting machines and 17 electronic poll pads. We also do live stream ballot processing, and anytime we do the ballot, it doesn't go 24/7. However, it's because it's in my office, and so we just do it when we're actually processing them. I didn't do a whole lot of statistics for elections. Will say that over the years, and we do have statistics that go back far, and how registered voters have increased over the years and turnout has been good. Primaries are also slower, have a lesser turnout than a general election. And we had 17,399 registered active voters for this general election, and we had 13,522 show up to vote. So that was pretty impressive. Just to give you an idea, I went more on a month-to-month basis in 2026 and how that another election year and what we do in our office, and it's basically just everything commingled. You know, of course, we have judicial candidate filing, as was mentioned, you know, and then we have property taxes that are due, commission meetings, what we're doing. It's just this all daily. Voter registration processing is a nonstop. Marriage licenses, notaries, and then budgets actually are due. We're working on those. And all the month-end processing, so, you know, because we're finance. Each month, basically, it's the same thing. We just add in all the election agenda items and things that we need to do for elections. Candidate filings in March. And then we have to prepare and distribute military and overseas mail ballots in April. And then we start recruiting, and we will train our poll workers. We'll distribute sample ballots. We'll prepare and distribute mail ballots to the out-of-state people. Election equipment, we'll actually pre-lat that and, for that certification so that it's ready for the election. And of course, early voting. And you know, property taxes, it's always a joke in our office because you can come in, pay property taxes, and go early vote at the same time because we have it in the same building. And then, of course, June, we have the primary election added into our workday, and then we go on to July. And then August, it's basically, you know, everything that we still are doing. It's just it's a busy office, I will tell you that. And then September, we jump back into doing all the mail ballots. August, you know, we're doing preparation with our rolls and everything. And then we just start the recruiting over again and then do our pre-lat for the general election. And then November, of course, the general election. And December, we breathe. Other than that, that's pretty much what I've been doing for all these years, I will say. 2024 was an exceptional year, and I will say probably none other because of what we did in 2024. 3 elections, we did the top-down system. With the combined office, we're still have to do all the treasurer's stuff, all the delinquent stuff, you know, everything that we do. I am looking forward to moving into the next, you know, this year. Legislation is huge, as was mentioned. Amy mentioned a few things, and so just following that and being able to be part of that and communicate with my committees, because I have a treasurer's committee as well as I have the clerk's committee, and trying to be a little bit more helpful on those when we're discussing all that. Seeing from going from punch cards to touchscreens in 2004, you know, and then it's just been an incredible journey to see the difference in technology. And we went from, you know, then from the 2004, we upgraded in 16, and then now we're moving on to a different printer will be our new one. We're actually going to implement in our county this year. So this will be nice, and I'm excited about it. There is going to be a lot of voter outreach that we're going to have to do. You know, it's and publications and you know, just all the different things that we'll need to do. But other than that, challenges are always there. I will, you know, and then having staff, keeping staff. I've got 2 retiring this year, so that's 1/3 of my office going to get cut in half, and it depends on how fast I can get somebody in. But when you lose an employee that has 18 years of, you know, institutional knowledge, and then you're bringing in new people that you have to train, it just takes a lot out of the office and whoever else is going to be training. So, but I think, you know, 2026 is going to be, you know, a good year. Just a lot, we're going to keep working elections, you know, and everything we're going to do. Anybody that, if you guys are interested in contacting me, I'm new to the block to legislation, so I will say that I am absolutely open for any discussion at any time. So if anybody, I've got my information right here. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation, Clerk Treasurer Rothery. Thank you for driving all the way out from Fallon to present us in this terrible weather.
I know, right?
I have one question. How would you describe last year the relationship between your office and the Native American tribes and reservations there in terms of trying to establish polling places, communication, staffing of the polling places on the tribal lands? I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about, you know, the Churchill County's role with the Native American populations there in Churchill County.
We have one tribe in in a colony and a tribe, but where we had our polling location, and we have a really good relationship with the council there, and then working with them, and I do provide staff out there because we are still trying to build our tribal for people that live on the tribe, that they can be poll workers. And so I think poll workers is the one thing that we are going to be, that is one of our things we're working on this year, how we can outreach, see if we can find, you know, it's like try to get more involvement, I should say, and more voter like outreach on the tribe. And so that's one of the things that is kind of a goal. Last year for 2024, it was good. Turnout, you know, it's like I feel that moving forward, and as there's more information to tribal members about voting, I believe that it's going to get more and more, you know, for the turnout and, you know, for every election. So I'm optimistic on that. I've got one of the gals in my office. We have a lot of plans to, you know, help promote that, work with the tribe more, and then also working with the Secretary of State Liaison, Cal. So, you know, he's working with us with that, so.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. And Chief Deputy DeGuerra, please come forward.
Thank you so much, Senator Orenshaw. Gabriel DeCara for the record. Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to get some stats out there. I had them. Cal Boone, our tribal outreach coordinator, was here earlier, and as Linda said, he's done a lot of work to help with the liaison between county governments, the Secretary of State, and tribal governments. There were 3 new polling locations on tribal land that had not been polling locations previously at the Battle Mountain Band Council, the Lovelock Paiute Tribe, and the Stewart Community Council. The turnout for those 3 new polling locations was 491. That's a large number for rural communities. And I will say our office has started working on turnout, looking at turnout for precincts that make up precincts that are made up of predominantly tribal land, reservations, colonies, et cetera. The turnout increase from 2022 to 2024 statewide was 18%. You expect turnouts higher in a presidential year. The turnout increase on those precincts that included tribal land was 36%, so double. We're really grateful to the clerks for all of the work that they did in implementing the bills that were passed, and we're grateful for the cooperation of the tribal governments in working to get out the word in their community, and grateful for the Secretary of State's team to trying to bring it all together.
It sounds like a lot of collaboration, trying to make sure our tribal populations have been able to vote. Thank you, Chief Deputy DeGuerra, and thank you, Clerk Treasurer Rothery. I do have comment from Chair Mosca, and then I'll open it up for questions. Chair Mosca.
Thank you. I just wanted to, excuse me, to make sure that we thanked all three of our clerks for coming here today and showing us a very unique perspective from each county. So thank you to all of you, as well as our Secretary of State, especially for our new folks. I thought it was very helpful. Thank you.
And I'll second that. Questions? Thank you very much for the presentation. Safe travels back to Fallon. Thank you for the informative presentation. With that, we'll move on now to our last agenda item, public comment. Is there anyone here in Carson City who'd like to make public comment? We are limiting it to 2 minutes per speaker. If I don't see anyone in Carson City, down in Las Vegas, anyone who wishes to make public comment, please come forward. I'm not seeing anyone down in Las Vegas. Broadcasting, is there anyone on the phone lines who wishes to make public comment? We are going to take public comment now. It is 2 minutes per speaker.
Thank you, Chair Orenshaw. To provide public comment, please press *9 to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon. My name is Ellen Gifford, and I'd like to share that United States Code 245, Federally Protected Activities, states whoever interferes with any person qualifying or acting as a poll watcher shall be fined or imprisoned. The Constitution of the state of Nevada states each voter who is a qualified elector and properly registered to vote has the right to have questions concerning voting procedures answered and to have complaints about elections and election contests resolved fairly, accurately, and efficiently. This is repeated in the Nevada Secretary of State Voters' Bill of Rights. NRS 293274 states members of the general public shall be allowed to observe the conduct of voting at a polling place. Allowing public observance of the election process is declared to be the law in no less than 7 Nevada revised statutes. Nowhere in these documents and statutes does it state that someone who wishes to observe the people's election process must disclose their party affiliation, nor is it mentioned that seating for the public will be limited to 3, 1 seat for a Democrat, 1 seat for a Republican, and 1 seat for a nonpartisan citizen. Yet, in the 2024 general election, such limitations existed at various poll locations. Acts of this nature towards citizens who wish to view the people's election process are a form of intimidation and in violation of Nevada law. Nevada's legislature must address these unlawful acts with legislation that declares these acts the Class E felony, commensurate with NRS 293710 and NRS 293705 in support of the rights of Nevada citizens. Thank you.
Chair, there are no additional public comment callers at this time.
Thank you very much for broadcasting, and thanks everyone for their attention to this very informative hearing. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you, members. With that, we are adjourned.